Hello and welcome to today's video. Today I'm reviewing a pen from a brand I reviewed a pen from a couple of years ago. It is Hex Pens, which is a Canadian based pen company, and today we're looking at this. This is the DNA Lucent, and this has the double helix design. So this is a 3D printed pen using a hydrophobic UV resin, and it is beautifully crafted, it is beautifully done, and we're going to talk about the parts and features of this very interesting pen today. So I want to start by briefly talking about the packaging. This is the just the shipping box it came in, but it's all very nicely done. On the inside of the lid here, you get some instructions on how to unbox the pen, and it's very nice. I got a little sort of a information and a user guide in here. This is a beautiful, lovely sort of thick card envelope with the little embossed Hex logo on it there. And then the box itself, you see it's got some little magnets on it. And then when you open this up and you lift this up, the little pen tray there lifts up to meet you. This is a very nice 3D printed plastic pen tray. Pen sat in there. You get a little eyedropper. It is an eyedropper filled pen, and then a cloth there. It's a really lovely setup. But let's get back to the pen. So top of the pen is this nicely polished dome. You get the clip band in there. The clip is quite stiff, but sort of usable. The cap swells and then continues to this center band here, which says Hex Pen and Lucent there. The barrel, little step down onto the barrel, and the barrel continues along. We get a chrome ring and then a lovely clear polished end there. It is a twist cap pen and it comes off in about 1 3/4 turns. It doesn't post. It kind of feels like it should, but it doesn't quite get over that metal ring. That's probably good for the stress of the material. And you can see the set of threads on this end and a set of threads up on this end. These threads are just to sort of secure that end post there. And then you've got this section, of course, that is an eyedropper pen. So you can unscrew the grip section here, and that will give you the space to fill the pen. There's nice O-rings and everything to keep it all very sort of secure, and so the ink doesn't get anywhere it shouldn't. There's a little step down off that barrel there onto the threads, and the threads are not sharp, but they are kind of grippy, but you don't feel them when you're writing with the pen because it's quite a nice long section that tapers, has a little flare on the end. And then it's got a number 6 box, so it's the Bock 250 steel nib and feed there, and this is the Hex Pen nib, so it's got like the beautiful sort of a hexagonal design and their logo on it there. It's a really nice looking unit. The entire pen is a beautiful looking, beautifully designed unit. As you can see, it's called this is the double helix version because there are 2 sets of ribbons, and it's designed to look like that DNA sequence kind of thing. So it's got the little bars between the helix, and so when you fill it with ink, it sort of fills into that helix really nicely. It gives it a capacity of about 2 milliliters of ink, which is quite nice. And yeah, it's a beautifully designed, beautifully executed sort of pen. They've been doing these for a while now with the other pen models as well. So it's nice to sort of see them really, making these really beautifully. One thing I will say is that, like, while the exterior is really beautifully sort of polished and smooth, the internal of the helix, for obvious reasons, doesn't have quite the same level of polish, and you can see like the ink gripping into the texture occasionally, and like I kind of like that. Like I didn't fill this up completely because I wanted to be able to see the ink moving around. I've been using this pen now for a couple of weeks and it has definitely dropped down, but you can see where the ink is so up through here, for instance, where the ink is sort of gripping into that texture just a little bit. And as I said, I don't mind that. It keeps it from sort of being completely empty. This particular ink that I have in here is the Hex Pens Electric Blue. You can see on the bottom of the box there it says made in Canada, which is cool. So it's like you'll see in the writing sample, it's quite a beautiful blue, bit of red sheen. It's not sort of super dark or saturated. I think the box design is lovely. Like the design on the lid there is very nice. But the actual bottle itself is great. So it continues in that sort of hexagonal sort of shape, and then it's got this, what I'm assuming is a 3D printed cap by the company as well, and then electric blue. Now, the ink itself is a special formulation that is designed for the Lucent pens, or the 3D printed pens. Because it is basically, I think it's sort of easier to clean, it has smooth flow, and it is engineered for this pen. So that retails for about $13.99 for that 50ml bottle. That's $13.99, I assume US, or maybe it's Canadian. But that's just the price that comes up on the website. And it's really, really great. I'm enjoying writing with this ink. I'm enjoying writing with this pen a lot. For the size comparison, I'm just putting it alongside the traditional Lamy Safari. You can see it is considerably longer. This is not a small pen. They've done a beautiful job in creating a pen that has traditional lines. So it's got that traditional sort of, domed cigar sort of shape, and has a nice feel in the hand, while, as I said, maintaining some traditional shape, but also, it's nice and big, and it's got a lot sort of that's interesting about it. Uncapped, still significantly larger there than the Lamy Safari. But the Lamy Safari does post, whereas the Hex Pens does not post. So the Safari can come out longer, but I think most people are going to be quite okay with the size of the DNA Lucent from Hex Pens here. So what are the specific dimensions of this pen model? Well, it's 159mm when it's capped. It's 141 when it's uncapped, and you can see it's a nice sort of size in the hand, as it does not post. Middle of the section is about 11mm, and around the cap point here is about 15.5. The entire pen weighs 29.5 grams. 19.5 of that is the writing form, 10 of that is the cap, but as I said, it doesn't post. And as I also said, it has a 2ml ink capacity when completely full. Okay, let's do a writing sample here with the Hex Pens DNA Lucent. So the DNA referencing, of course, that DNA sequence kind of design there. This has a number 6 steel Bock nib, and I have it here in a medium. The Bock medium, I think, is slightly finer there traditionally than the, say, like a Yovo medium. And Hex Pens do tune every nib that goes out on one of their pens. The ink in this is Hex Pens Electric Blue. Lovely ink. So it is quite smooth. There's a little hint of feedback, but it is smooth. It's not the wettest pen going around, but I think, it's doing a pretty decent job. Reverse writing is quite smooth and, like a little drier. It is not a flex nib. Please do not try and push this out. You can get a tiny little bit of sort of line variation if you press down, but it's not soft, it's not flex. It's just sort of, you're just sort of pushing the nib. Fast writing. Like, it's okay. There's a little skip there just at the start, and occasionally you get like a little hard start just like that. But, it's okay. For a standard sort of writing, it's not too bad. I do generally find that these Bock nibs and feed sort of systems do sometimes struggle with the faster sort of writing. They're not the wettest, sort of super flowy nibs on the planet. So sometimes, they do just take a little bit of extra sort of effort. A little bit of right-handed writing, so you get that perspective. Like, it's very smooth. Exceptionally smooth. As I said, there's a tiny bit of feedback, but really, it's a pretty smooth, nicely tuned nib. Not the wettest, as I said, but pretty decent sort of for like, your standard everyday writing. So the DNA Lucent is listed on the Hex Pens website at $168, which I don't think is too bad a deal. It's a good size pen, it writes well, all of that kind of stuff, and it's an interesting pen, and it's certainly a pen that captures people's attention. With this beautiful blue ink in it, it's quite great. You don't have to use their ink. I have in my other Hex Pens pen, I have used a range of other inks. I tend to use a lot of things like, Diamonds and Robert Osters in my everyday life. They're perfectly safe. They clean relatively well, but this particular pen, the electric blue, is also designed to clean very easily out of this pen. So it's $168. I will say there's also a triple twist version, with, sort of extra swirls and things. But that, when I'm filming this, that's not available at the moment. So what are my pros and cons for this pen? Well, cons. Firstly, the nib is not super wet. It's perfectly fine. But if you're wanting a super wet, juicy writing experience, you might want to also do a little bit of work on this, perhaps. My other issues are kind of like sort of more practical ones. First is that the pen doesn't post. So if you're someone who really needs to post their pens, not going to do that. The other thing is, I've only had this happen once with this pen. But if you tighten the cap down too hard, you can actually unscrew. And if you don't screw the section down tight enough, you can actually unscrew the section by unscrewing the cap. I've only had it happen once, but it is just something to be aware of, that's the same threading motion that is required for both. But there are tons of pros. Firstly, I love the design, just even down to the simple general lines of the pen. I think it's beautiful. I think the silver trim looks great too. I think the finish and the polish of the material is really cool. And of course that double helix there on the inside is a very fun feature. I really, really like the size of the pen. It's very comfortable to write with. You don't feel that step down or the threads, and the grip section feels quite natural in your fingers, and the balance is, pretty nice in your hand as well. I really like the experience of opening the pen, with that box. I think it's beautiful. I think the ink is really nice, and the fact that they've made their own ink and had it formulated for this pen is a really lovely sort of, feature that you can get an ink that is particularly formulated for a pen to work in it and be cleanable. Because the thing is, cleaning these pens, you can unscrew the end here and then flush it right through. And that's sort of what I would suggest. But you don't want anything that stains, and this definitely doesn't. So that's really great. And then the general writing experience with the nib is good as well. It's smooth, it's reliable. Not the best for fast writing, but for everyday stuff, it's really fantastic. So this was the Hex Pens DNA Lucent. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. I certainly have loved using this pen and will continue to. A big thank you to Hex Pens for sending this out for me to show you, as well as the ink, which I think is great. Jump onto their website. I'll link it all down below. They have some really interesting stuff, and what they do is very, very cool. So yes, like and subscribe, hit the notifications button, all that kind of stuff. If you've got products you think I should be looking at, please get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. Your support is what makes this channel possible. In the meantime, enjoy your pens, enjoy writing, and I'll talk to you soon.